Janis, the co-president of NAMI Westside Los Angeles. We are a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to educating family members with relatives with brain illnesses, and we also educate individuals with brain illnesses. We offer classes, speaker meetings, and support group meetings for individuals with the illness and for family members. But people hang around NAMI and they don't feel alone, they don't feel isolated. They lose shame and guilt because they can see that it's a common phenomenon, we having a family member with a brain illness. 1 in 4 of us, according to the National Institute of Mental Health, has a brain illness. So we're in very good company, and the more we talk about it openly and to the public, the less stigma there is to have a brain illness. I just watched this movie called Weight of Gold about Olympic athletes, champions, and how many of them are suicidal after they're completely finished with being champions because they don't have an identity separate from their athletic prowess and living their dreams. So NAMI is needed everywhere, and it's in every state in the union, and it's practically in every city in the union. And it's my honor to serve NAMI Westside Los Angeles. And I want to introduce you to the most amazing woman, our spectacular, wonderful, intelligent, and gracious executive director, Erin Ryan. Erin, I turn the meeting over to you.
Yay.
Thank you, Sharon. That's quite an introduction from our leader, Sharon Janis, who's really the cornerstone of this organization. I'd also like to thank Janice Black-Warner for this speaker series. Without her, this would not be possible. So Janice, thank you so much for your continuing support for our organization and just your leadership in that. So thank you, Janice, for letting us all be here this evening. Also, Roger, we can't wait to hear from you. But just before we start, I want to introduce our small but nimble and impactful team, which is our program director, Tim Davis. Tim, give a little wave. Director of Programs, and then Elizabeth Stevens, our Outreach and Operations Coordinator. She also runs a lot of our peer programs. So we are here for you. So please, we'll put all our emails in the chat box. So if you need to reach out for anything, please don't hesitate. I'm going to let Tim just take it away now and explain a little bit of our programs, just in case you're not familiar with them. Thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you, Erin. And I really don't want to take up too much more time because I think everybody here really does know about our programs. But in case you know people in your life who could use our classes that Sharon was talking about, we have great family classes. It's called Family to Family. We've made a really successful transition onto the Zoom platform. So we're delivering our classes now virtually. And it's an 8-week version rather than the previous 12-week version, and it's really been going very well. We're going to offer 2 new family classes in the fall, so please do spread the word if you know people, family members who would benefit from that kind of support and education. And Elizabeth is kind of in charge of our peer programs, which include a new peer class, which she's offering a peer class in session right now, co-taught by our Garrett Shaw, who's on here, and then but we're gonna have another peer class being offered in the fall as well. So please spread the word about that. And of course, we also have weekly ongoing Zoom support groups too. So I know a lot of you are already taking advantage of that, but again, these are great, vital groups that just have a new energy and are more important than ever in the climate that we are currently living through. So really happy that we have these programs to offer our community, and very happy that we have this speaker series, and look forward to hearing from Roger. But I think maybe Sharon, you had a couple words you wanted to say about Roger, so I'm going to get back to you.
I also want to just publicly thank Janice Black-Warner for our speaker series, for her incredible support of NAMI Westside Los Angeles. We are so grateful to you, Janice. It's hard to put it into words. So she's the lady with the long black hair there, and I want
Thank you, Sharon.
Be honored by us. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our speaker, who was brought to me by Garrett Shaw. His name is Roger Nolan, and Roger Nolan is he's an MA, LMFT, marriage and family therapist. He's a certified professional mindfulness meditation and yoga master and teacher since 1973. Since 1995, he's been specializing in mindfulness-based cognitive therapy for emotional trauma and anxiety. He teaches at Antioch University in Los Angeles. He also is involved with something called the Center for Mindful Living in LA.
Oh.
He founded something called MUSE Meditation app, and I guess he will.
I didn't found it. I didn't found it.
It's just right here, what somebody sent me. So anyway,
Okay.
I'm going to turn this over to Roger Nolan. We're so grateful you're giving us this speaker series tonight, Roger. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sharon. I really appreciate that. And it's really a privilege to be here. Welcome, everybody. And just want to say that, as a therapist, I've been really well aware of NAMI for a long time. And you have been a go-to referral source for me for years, especially for family members who might be dealing with someone in their family with a mental disorder or brain injury. So, and I want to give a special thank you and a shout out to Garrett Shaw for recommending me for this little talk. Thank you, Garrett. Garrett was a student of mine at Antioch University in the Mindfulness and Clinical Practice class. And we need to catch up is what we need to do, Garrett, one of these days. So let's figure out if we can do a Zoom chat like this, and I'll find out what you're up to. So the evening, as I see it, will go like this. I'll be presenting a didactic and educational portion, and that piece will be about anxiety and anger. And it'll be about the brain science of anxiety and anger. And then we'll move into the mindfulness-based part of that as to how we can use very simple and easy to apply mindfulness techniques to deal with anxiety and anger, and that will be the experiential piece. That's where you all get to take part. And then after that, we'll have some reactions to the experimental piece, and then at the end, there will be time for questions, if there are any at that time. Now, during any part of the presentation, if you need some clarification, there is a hand-raising feature, I believe, you have installed here on this particular Zoom, and you can raise your hand, and and maybe Aaron or Sharon or somebody, if you see a hand raised, you can let me know, or if you want to actually raise your physical hand and they see your physical hand raised, let me know. You could chat in a question again if Sharon or Aaron could, or somebody could just see that and let me know there's a question.
Yeah, we'll let you know.
Okay, great, and I can take it from there. And I also want to say that during this presentation, having your video on is optional. It's not mandatory. If you feel more comfortable at any point with your video off, feel free to do that, or go back and forth. Absolutely, but just make sure that you are taking care of yourselves and that you're comfortable with either having the video on or not.
And also, it might be a good idea if you mute yourself until you have a question, so there's no background noise as Roger speaks.
Great, thank you. Okay, so tonight I want to be unpacking anxiety and anger a little bit, and because these are I'll be looking at the mechanisms of these emotions, which I think are two of the most powerful and in some ways destructive emotions that we have. So why would we want to take a deep dive into feelings that don't feel good? And that's a really great question. And so let's see, I need to, I'm trying to share my screen, but it's not sharing. Hang on one second. Let's see what's going on here. Oh, you know why? There we go. Okay, good. Now it is. All right, so unpacking anxiety and anger. So one of the things we have found in mindfulness-based interventions for difficult emotions is that the more aware we can be of our emotions or our world, it actually decreases the power of an emotion. And Daniel Siegel, who is a neurobiologist over here at UCLA and also an author of mindfulness-based books and so forth, he does a lot of mindfulness-based research over there, has said, name it and you can claim it. So if you can name the emotion that you're having, it actually decreases the intensity of it. There was a study that was done recently, and I really like what they say about this, that individuals who tend to accept their mental experiences attain greater psychological health because acceptance helps them to experience less negative emotion in response to the stressor. So I'm again thinking that the more we can learn about these difficult emotions, rather than trying to get rid of them or avoid them, imagining that we can avoid them, right? We're all human. We're all going to have anxiety. Anxiety is just a normal human emotion. We're all going to have experiences of anger on that spectrum, and we'll get to that in a minute, on what I call the anger spectrum. That the more we can become aware of these things and how they actually work, the less power they're going to have over us. So we have more power over them. And mindfulness is all about coming back to the present moment reality so that we have a choice about how we respond to something like an experience of anxiety or an experience of anger. And so choice comes through this kind of mindful awareness. And another reason we might want to look at these emotions is from the standpoint of psychology or psychotherapy. They are fairly easy to treat. So when somebody comes to me and they say that they have anger or anxiety issues, I know I will be able to help them. So these are very treatable experiences. And I'll just be discussing the garden variety kinds of anxieties and angers that any of us might face at any moment in our daily life. However, for those of you who might be caregivers for individuals who have dysregulating emotions, sometimes these can also be helpful for you to re-regulate your own feelings, to bring them back into a place where you don't get carried away by anger and anxiety. Okay, so let's get going here with this. My learning objectives tonight include understanding some brain science about anxiety and anger, especially the fight or flight reaction. Learning belly breathing. This is going to be one of the mindfulness techniques that we're going to be looking at. Belly breathing is a technique for re-regulating the central nervous system. And we'll learn the stop practice, which is a mindfulness-based intervention, which again is all about re-regulating our central nervous system and coming back to the present moment and giving us that space where we can make a choice as to how we respond to a situation rather than just reacting automatically. So since it can be helpful to have some kind of little memory aid to help us remember new material, and maybe some of this is new, maybe for some of you a lot of this is going to be review. But in order to create that memory aid, I've come up with a silly little mnemonic or an easy reminder that you can use in the future if you're wanting to remember to put these mindfulness-based techniques into practice. And that mnemonic is this, abs. Okay, so I figured everybody wants, you know, those abs of steel, right? Has anybody seen the Baby Shark abs workout video? It's hilarious. Okay, so abs. The A stands for awareness and acceptance. So that's what we're going to be learning in the first piece. We're going to be learning about awareness of these emotions and acceptance that that they come. Belly breathing is the B, and the S is for the stop practice. So in the future, if it helps to go, what did he talk about? Oh yeah, abs. So maybe you can remember that just a little bit. Okay, so let's start with the awareness component. And once you become more aware of these emotions and that they exist, you might be better able to do something about them. So we're going to begin with the fight or flight reaction. Many of you have probably heard of fight or flight, but it's really a protective mechanism that the brain has that protects us against threats. It's an evolutionary trait that we've had since at least hunter-gatherer times, and probably even, you know, all mammals may even have it. and it's just utilized to keep us safe. So it's a survival behavior, and it helps to fulfill the prime directive of this organism, which is to basically keep itself alive. So the flight or fight reaction and all anxiety is simply a message coming from the body that says something's important here and needs to be paid attention to. So for this fight or flight reaction, it might be helpful to look into the brain just a little bit. So I have this cross section of the brain, and let's see if I can get I wonder if I can make, do I have the ability to, no, I guess I don't. Okay, so you won't be able to see my cursor very well, but down here at the bottom, we have the reptilian brain, and that's where we have a lot of instinctual things. The reptilian brain controls the body's automatic functions, like breathing or heart rate, things like that, and it's fully developed at birth. And the primary function and responsibility for that reptilian brain is physical survival. So it reacts very quickly when something is needed. That's the startle reflex, when you get startled with a loud noise, that comes from that reptilian brain. And then moving up, we have the limbic brain, or the limbic system, in the center of the brain, or the midbrain. And this is where the fight or flight reaction takes place. We have this area of the brain that is kind of always scanning, making sure everything's okay. And if something strange or unusual happens, then that part of the brain gets triggered, and that begins the fight or flight reaction. We might want to call that the squirrel brain. So if we have the reptilian brain, we have the squirrel brain. And then at the top there, we have the neocortex. And this is where we do all of our good thinking. This is where the prefrontal cortex resides. It's in charge of executive functions like planning, setting goals, directing action. And for all of the seeming supremacy of that prefrontal cortex up here, that new part of the brain, the limbic system can actually take over and overpower it. So what we're going to find is that the limbic system is actually one of the most powerful parts of the brain, and it's very hard to override. And the limbic system can even inhibit the functioning of the prefrontal cortex, as we'll see in a minute. However, the limbic system itself, it does not think. The limbic system doesn't create thoughts. It just responds to stimuli in our environment or from inside ourselves. So it can be external. There's a tiger in the bushes. My limbic system is going to get triggered by that. Or it can be internal. I think there's a tiger in the bushes. And my limbic system can get triggered by that too. So the limbic system can get triggered by thoughts. It doesn't have to even be a real threat. It can be real or it can be imagined. And when the limbic system gets triggered, that sets off a whole chain reaction in the brain and in the body, mainly dealing with a lot of hormones and chemicals that can be used to help us protect ourselves. And one of the big chemicals that we have is cortisol. And cortisol comes from the brain, and usually it's considered to be a stress hormone, but actually it's just a wake-up chemical. Whenever you wake up in the morning, this little spritz of cortisol goes off in your brain. It says time to get up, and it gets us out of bed. It gets us ready for action. Or whenever we have a change of context, even just coming on to this meeting, you all had just a little bit of a release of cortisol in your brain probably because you had to pay attention on how to get in here and so forth. But it just gets us ready for things. And then cortisol triggers the release of adrenaline in the body. Down in the kidneys, we have the adrenal medulla and the adrenal cortex, and that sends this adrenaline out into the bloodstream. So the effects of adrenaline, it speeds up the heart rate, and all of this is to help us stay safe, by the way. This was all about either running from something or fighting something. So adrenaline speeds up the heart, but it slows down digestion. So depending on what organ it's making contact with, it has different effects. That's why when we get anxious, we might get a stomach ache, or we say, I have butterflies in my stomach. It's from the adrenaline slowing down the digestive system. It dilates, expands the alveoli in the lungs. This is where we exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide. So we get more oxygen in the bloodstream. So we're ready to either run or fight. It causes the liver to create glycogen or glucose, basically sugar, so that we have that kind of energy. And finally, it increases blood pressure so that we have a lot of that energy moving through the body very, very quickly. We all know the feeling of that adrenaline rush, I think. Sometimes it can be just where, well, we'll come up with some examples later. You could just be standing in line at the bank and suddenly do we still stand in line at the bank, by the way? This is now an antiquated example because I haven't been in a bank since early March. But when we used to stand in line at the bank, remember there'd be a long line and like 2 of the tellers would suddenly go off to lunch? And you go, what just happened? These people are leaving. That's just that little spritz of adrenaline there, a little fight or flight reaction that just took off there. It's really just that automatic. So when the limbic system gets activated, it begins to assume control of the brain. Basically, we'll take it from here. The limbic system says, we've got this. And so the rational thinking part of the brain decreases in activity. I mean, it actually kind of goes offline a lot or sometimes a little. So I suppose because you don't have to think if you're running from that tiger in the bushes, you just have to run. And sometimes this is called an amygdala or a limbic system hijack. Yeah, limbic hijack. So that limbic system takes over the prefrontal cortex. This is why we say and do what we might consider later really stupid things in the middle of an argument, you know, or a disagreement with somebody, or we walk away from an argument and suddenly we go, oh, I know what I should have said to that guy. That's because now the prefrontal cortex, that neocortex, has come back online again, and the limbic system has calmed down. But during the conflict, it's very common for us not to be able to think clearly. And I have a lot of clients who say, oh, I just don't know what to say during a conflict. And I say, nobody does, because we don't have that brain capacity anymore. It's all gone to the limbic system and the fight or flight reaction. So the fight or flight reaction is triggered, as I mentioned, not just through life-threatening experiences, but even when we're just simply anxious about something. Or it can be triggered by just a thought. And it can be triggered about a thought from the future. Now, most anxiety is triggered by a thought about something in the future, not about what's actually happening right now. So if I'm standing in line at a roller coaster, let's say, I don't know if any of you like roller coasters. I happen to like them. They're kind of fun. But if I'm standing in line for one of those roller coasters, I'm just standing in line. I'm standing on solid ground. I'm not moving. I'm very safe. But then I hear the sound of the roller coaster going by, and maybe I hear the screams of the people on the roller coaster, and I picture myself in that experience 5 minutes from now, and I get anxious too. But in the present moment, I'm okay. Right now, I'm okay. I'm standing on solid ground, beautiful day. Maybe I'm with people I like. I'm not even moving. And so the limbic system or the fight or flight reaction and anxiety are triggered by thoughts about what's going to happen in the future. And then we can get into an anxiety cycle where we imagine this future, and then we imagine that it's going to be overwhelming. And we overestimate how bad it's going to be. And then we underestimate our ability to handle it. And that creates this whole anxiety cycle where we start all these thoughts going, oh no, what's going to happen? I hope this doesn't get worse. Oh, I know what's going to happen because it happened before. And on it might go. But these are just thoughts that we're having. None of this is actually happening. Now, if you ever wake up in the middle of the night and you can't get back to sleep, that's because you're thinking about the future. You're probably, or maybe the past, but you're not in the present moment. Because if you're in the present moment, you know that right now, whatever you're thinking about isn't actually happening. I'm lying in bed. And so when we can bring ourselves back to lying in bed, you know, feeling ourselves on the bed, feeling our head on the pillow, then we can bring ourselves back to the present moment. And that anxiety can sort of just drift away on its own. We actually unplug from those anxious thoughts when we come back to the present moment. More about that later when we get into the stop practice. So anger is the result of fear. And I can't say that enough. Anger is a secondary emotion based on some threat. So if we look at this through the lens of the fight or flight reaction, when we have anger, we're trying to defend ourselves against what the brain is perceiving as a threat. And so we can get angry about a lot of things, about these future thoughts. For example, if we're stuck in traffic, and again, do any of us drive to work anymore? But when we used to drive to work and we might get stuck in traffic, we're fine. In the present moment, I'm just sitting in my car, probably not even moving or not moving very much. I'm very safe. But I look at the clock on my dashboard and I go, oh no, it's 15 minutes to when I'm supposed to be there. I'm going to be late. So I have projected myself into the future. And I'm not even late yet. I'm actually not even late, and yet I'm already there and I'm late, and I'm walking into wherever I am, a meeting, my office, whatever, and I'm embarrassed and people are talking about me, or I'm worrying that I'm going to get fired. And then the anger starts. Maybe I get angry with the other people in the cars around me, even though I'm in the traffic, right? I'm part of the problem. I get angry at all of them because I need to defend against that fear. And so we have this very irrational experience of anger that arises because of that anxiety. And we'll talk a little bit more about how really irrational this anger can be here in just a moment. So I like to put anger and fear on a spectrum. And this way people can see, first of all, that what we might consider as something else might actually be something to do with fear or anxiety, but also to see that there are different gradations of these experiences of fear within the big framework of fear. So in the blue, cool end, we have mild concern. All right, so there's something going to happen, I don't know. Then we have worry, oh no, something might happen. And then we have apprehension, I know it's going to happen. Then we have agitation. What do I do? This is going to happen. And then we have anxiety. Oh no, the future, I'm seeing the future and this is going to be terrible. And then dread for the future, and then alarm, and then it can go all the way up to panic. So we have this gradation of fear. We also have an anger spectrum. And anger can go all the way from mild annoyance to frustration, exasperation, irritability, resentment, or all the way up to rage. And the more we can become aware of where we are on that spectrum, the better able we will be to re-regulate ourselves when we need to. And if we begin to also see things like frustration as an experience of anger, that can give us some useful clues about how to work with that as well. So the way I help folks deal with anger is this. I actually ask them to ask themselves, what am I afraid of? Where is this threat that I'm afraid of? Where do I feel threatened? And this may sound totally irrational. And a lot of times it is, but let's remember that we're dealing with the limbic system. We're dealing with the irrational part of the brain. It doesn't think. The rational part of the brain isn't processing properly. So we're dealing with the survival part, not the rational part. And so it may be like really crazy. Like I had a couple one time. I was treating a husband and wife, and I said, well, what's been a recent argument that you had? And they said, well, the other night, she said, well, the other night I opened up the refrigerator door and I looked inside and I said, wow, this refrigerator needs cleaning. And he got all angry with me. And I turned to him and I said, so why, what was the threat? What were you afraid of? And he said, I was afraid she was saying that I didn't clean the refrigerator well. And that's what started his anger. That's why I'm saying this is so irrational that sometimes we almost have to laugh at getting angry at something. So since the limbic system, that survival part of the brain, is irrational, it can be sometimes hard to find the underlying origins of our anger. Again, this is where mindfulness can be helpful, and the stop practice that we're going to look at here in just a moment. It can come from very unexpected places, this anger. Maybe it's happened to you, maybe you've seen it happen, but you know, a child gets lost in a department store, and when the parent finds them, they're not like, "Oh, honey, I'm so glad to find you." It's like, "Where did you go? I was so worried about you." They get angry at the child because they're afraid that the child was lost, might have gotten kidnapped, whatever it might be. It might seem irrational, but in that moment, the limbic system is saying you have to respond to this. Also, grief, loss, sadness, physical pain can trigger the limbic system. Fear of embarrassment. I think this is why people have a lot of fear about speaking in public, because I'll mess up, I'll look stupid. Have you ever said or heard somebody say, "Oh, I was so embarrassed, I could have just died," right? That's the limbic system talking. It's afraid that we're going to be embarrassed. So there's good news. There's good news. There are antidotes to anger and to anxiety. And whoops, what happened to my screen here? Let's come back here. There we go. And I'll tell you what those antidotes are. Thank you for asking. Okay. Just bring this up. There we go. Okay, good. So the 3 antidotes to anger and anxiety are, guess what? Guess what they are? Yes, awareness and acceptance of the emotion. This is what's here. Belly breathing. Yeah. And what's the next one? It's going to be, of course, the stop practice. But before we get there, let's look at belly breathing for a moment. This is one of the most useful ways to calm yourself down any time. So I'm going to be looking at a nerve called the vagus nerve. And this is the anatomy of the vagus nerve. Now up here we have the brain, and then coming down out of the brainstem, we have these long nerves. And this is the vagus nerve. Vagus means wanderer. So it's the wandering nerve. And it goes all the way from the brainstem, all the way down here to the gut and into the colon even. So it's very much attached here to this area. And with belly breathing, when we breathe in and out through the nose, but we let the belly expand and release, we're gently massaging this vagus nerve down here, sending a signal to the central nervous system that everything's okay. So we'll look at that just a little bit more here about how it induces the relaxation response when we get to belly breathing. But we're inducing the relaxation response as opposed to the fight or flight reaction. And belly breathing is the kind of breathing we do when we are sleeping. So again, if you're having trouble getting to sleep, or you wake up and you can't fall back asleep, try abdominal breathing, try belly breathing, and it might bring you, first of all, back to the present moment, and then it can also re-regulate your central nervous system and calm you down just a little bit. The central nervous system has no choice. It has to respond to the belly breathing. And so when it does that, the limbic system basically goes, well, they must be okay. They're breathing abdominally. Let's go back and have coffee and donuts. All right, and it brings the prefrontal cortex back online too, by the way. So that's even better, because now we can start thinking clearly about what we're going to do next. And finally, the third antidote is the stop practice. All right, so we're going to do the stop practice here in just a moment, but I want to start by introducing you or refreshing you on belly breathing. So abdominal breathing is not deep breathing. We're not going like that. It's not like that at all. It's just normal breathing, but we want the abdomen to move a little bit. So the way I teach it when I have people in my office, and again, I haven't had people in my office since March, but I used to like take a big book like the DSM, and I would have them lie down, and I'm going to stand up and show you what I do here. So I would have them lie down, and I put this on their abdomen like this, and then as they breathe in, they let it rise gently, and as they breathe out, they let it release gently. So on the inhale, they're gently pushing against the book, And on the exhale, they're just letting it fall. So that's what we're all going to do now, if you will. And of course, all of these are optional. You don't have to take part in any of the experiential portion here, but you can if you wish. So maybe just taking a hand or both hands and just placing them on your belly in the vicinity of your navel. And letting the belly relax, letting it be soft. And you can do this either sitting in a chair, sitting on a sofa, or lying down, or in any position that you happen to be. And then just breathing in and out through the nose. As you breathe in, let the abdomen expand a little bit. So your hands go out just a little, and as you exhale, let the abdomen release inward just a little bit. But don't exaggerate anything. Just keep the belly soft, and let the abdomen expand a little as you breathe in, and release a little as you breathe out. And we'll just do this for another, 30 seconds or so. And perhaps just noticing what's happening in your own body. And you can have eyes closed or open, it doesn't matter, whatever's comfortable for you. And so two things are happening here. The first is the diaphragm is moving in and out, massaging that vagus nerve, increasing vagal tone, sending that transduction signal to the brainstem, which sends a signal to the limbic system that says everything's okay. And the second thing that's happening is you're becoming present. You're feeling something in the present moment, the movement of the belly, which is always a present moment experience. And this is mindfulness right here. It's not some special state or feeling that we achieve. It's just being present. Okay, and you can stop now if you want, or continue abdominal breathing, belly breathing if you like. Now you can also enhance the experience of the belly breathing by blowing out gently through pursed lips. So breathing in gently through the nose and then breathing in through the nose and gently out through pursed lips. Extending the exhale will enhance the relaxation response. It will enhance the activation of that relaxation response with abdominal breathing. Okay, are there any questions about abdominal breathing, or what did you notice in doing that with belly breathing? If anyone wants to just turn on their mic and chat in, or however you'd like to do it. If there are no questions, that's fine too.
I experience inner peace, quietness.
Okay. Yeah, and that's just from taking a few breaths. And again, the brain, that part of the brain that we're dealing with has no choice. This is hard wiring that we're talking about here. And when we move the abdomen in that way and it massages the vagus nerve, that is just going to send that signal to the brain. And again, it's like turning on a light. The light has no choice but to turn on unless the bulb is broken or something. So as long as everything's intact in that way, you're going to probably feel a little bit, at least, of release. Because go ahead.
Was slowing down. I have no idea if that's really true, but it really felt like things were slowing down.
The heart rate?
Yeah, I don't know if that's physically really what was happening, but it was nice to feel that.
Thank you. I'm glad you brought that up. Yes, one of the physiological reactions of that style of breathing is it reduces heart rate, it reduces blood pressure, it increases the ability for the prefrontal cortex to stay online. Yeah, it very definitely does. If you ever have somebody take your pulse, you know, like at a doctor's office or something, try that style of breathing and you'll slow your pulse down. If you have one of these Fitbits or an Apple Watch or something that has, it shows your heart rate, you can sometimes watch that happen too. Don't look for these kinds of results as being something that you're trying to achieve, but it is definitely a side effect of belly breathing. Great. Thank you. All right, let's do now a stop practice. So the stop practice is a mindfulness-based intervention, and it's an acronym. This is an acronym-rich environment, the mindfulness-based environment, and S stands for stop. Wow, who knew? T stands for take a few belly breaths. The O, observe what you're feeling. So this is that awareness component of what is it that's actually going on right now? What emotion am I feeling? And then proceed with mindful awareness. And that could be either proceeding with awareness during the practice or when you're done, when you want to get up and go, you know, have dinner or whatever it might be. So we're going to be doing this practice now, if you wish. And again, all practices are optional. You don't have to do it. This can be done just fine sitting in a chair. I'm just sitting in an office chair here. You can be sitting on a sofa, and again, you can be lying down if that's better for you. Whatever you need to do is fine. One of the misconceptions about mindfulness practices is that it's all about what posture you choose, that we have to sit in a full lotus position or something like that, and that is not true. It can be done in any position, including while you're standing, walking, swimming, driving a car. It doesn't matter. You can do it anywhere. Just coming back to the present moment is all we're doing. And so this practice will be fairly short, be about 10 minutes. And then we'll have some time to talk about the practice. And then if there are any general questions about tonight's talk, be happy to stick around for that too. So let's make sure we're comfortable in a position that's going to be easy for us to maintain for a little while. But if you need to move around at any time, go ahead. Don't hold the body stiff and tense. Let things be soft and at ease if you can. You can either have the eyes open, or they can be just barely open, kind of gazing downward toward a blank space, or they can be closed completely if that's comfortable for you. Or you can switch between those positions anytime you need to. And beginning by just noticing that we have stopped. And we've given ourselves permission to pause and to be here right now. Perhaps noticing where we're making contact with a chair or a cushion or a bed. And if you notice any tightness or tension anywhere in the body, allowing that to soften as much as it will. And so this is the S in stop, to simply stop, to put it on pause. We're not looking for anything in particular to happen. We're just noticing what is happening right now. And then the T for take a few belly breaths. And really feeling as you breathe in the gentle expanding of the belly, and as you breathe out, the gentle releasing inward of the belly. Not forcing the breath, just breathing. And letting these sensations of the body breathing help to anchor you, connect you to the present moment a little more fully. And so we'll take just a minute or two to just feel these belly breaths, feeling the belly inhale and exhale as we practice together in a little bit of silence. And very naturally, the mind is going to wander into the future or into the past or into daydreams or whatever it might be. And this is not a problem, because that wandering mind eventually leads us back to mindfulness. Sooner or later, we're going to notice that the attention has wandered, and in that moment, we have become mindful again. And we can invite the attention back to these sensations of the belly expanding and releasing. And so continuing for just a little while longer in a little bit of silence. And then we come to the O, to observe what's happening. And so if possible, expanding your attention to include the entire body in your awareness, just sitting or lying here. Not looking for anything in particular, not trying to get anything done. Just noticing what's here. Is the body tired or restless? Is it hungry or full? What's happening in the mind? Maybe the mind is quiet. Maybe it's cluttered with a lot of thoughts. And maybe there is an emotional tone to this moment. Maybe there's joy or some kind of frustration. Whatever it might be, we just notice it. This is what's here. Just observing it. And if anything gets to be too much, just back away. Just put on the brakes. Maybe let the eyes open, shift around. Do what you need to do to keep yourself comfortable. And then returning back to these sensations of the belly breathing. Just that gentle inhale, that easy exhale. Knowing that you are connecting to the present moment if you are feeling these experiences. And then whenever you're ready to, and taking as much time as you need, you can begin to transition from this practice, letting the eyes open or lifting your gaze. And now this would be where you would proceed with mindful awareness into the next part of your day if you did this kind of practice. Now that practice, I guess it was about 10 minutes, but you can do a stop practice in even just a few seconds. Just by stopping, taking a few belly breaths, noticing what's going on, this is what I'm feeling, and then proceeding back into the situation with mindful awareness. And the reason why we do these stop practices in that way is to put a little space between that stimulus, that event, whatever it might be, and some reaction to it. So usually we have that stimulus, that event, and then the reaction right on top of it. This is about putting some space in there. And that stop practice allows us to do that. Even if you just felt one breath, that would be a significantly different way of approaching a situation where you might feel, you might have an automatic reaction towards something. So there was a famous man, an author, Austrian psychiatrist, neurobiologist, and author of the book Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, who said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is the power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. And it really is freedom from those automatic reactions that the limbic system and that part of the brain throws up in certain situations. We don't have to react like that all the time. We can make a choice. So we don't have to have so much anger and so much fear. So what did you notice in that stop practice, if anything? Is there anything that you noticed or any questions you have about the practice itself?
It was wonderful.
How so?
It just, I was able to stop and just be in the present moment.
Okay.
Just be totally present, and it just felt, that made me feel lighter.
Mm-hmm.
Lighter psychologically. Less
Yeah, go ahead.
less burdened.
Yeah, less burdened, right. That's that kind of freedom from that, because we have these automatic reactions towards things, and those can be pretty heavy reactions. Now, I heard you mention earlier, I think before the meeting started, that you had been with Jack Kornfield on some occasions. And I used to sit with Jack quite often, and he actually is the person who gave me permission to start teaching in 2002. And he would say this, he would say, it's like the sign at the carnival for the raffle that says you must be present to win. And that's the deal. If you want to be able to let go of that stuff, to be able to not have so much anxiety thinking about the future, come back to the present moment, or not have so much anger, where do I feel the threat here, come back to the present moment. You have to be present to win.
That was beautiful.
Thank you. What else? Anyone have any questions or anything they noticed in that practice?
Anybody want to share anything? I think we're all in a coma. No, go ahead, Janis. Janis.
What's the difference between meditation and mindfulness breathing?
Well, meditation is probably just a big umbrella term for these exercises, let's say. Mindfulness is a form of meditation, but there are many different forms of meditation. And they all have different effects or different things that they are they're trying to make happen. In mindfulness meditation practice, we can use an object of attention like the sensations of breathing to connect us to the present moment. But we can use any sensory experience, including sounds or sensations, like what you're feeling in your hands. You can be mindful of that. And that is mindfulness meditation. Again, I hardly use that term. I usually say practice or exercise when I'm teaching it, because people have an experience or an expectation that meditation should be something like, I don't know, otherworldly or something. And mindfulness is just a very simple experience of being present, where nothing special may be happening. But the way we pay attention to it makes it very special. And so if we use mindfulness of the breathing, we're becoming aware of something that we do 15 to 20,000 times a day. And it's nothing special. But when we start paying attention to it, we realize how special it is. Does that help, Janis? explain that?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the question.
I love that Viktor Frankl quote you shared, and that, I mean, that really resonated with me because that space, I mean, as my colleagues, Erin and Elizabeth can attest, I'm a pretty cool, even-keeled customer. I don't get ruffled very easily, but I can relate to people who do get ruffled easily, and I can imagine they would like to connect with that space. I mean, I think we might be using that stop practice.
Say that quote again, please, Roger. I
Sure. Oh, let me bring it up for you here. I don't know why. There we go. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is the power to choose our response. In our responses lie our growth and our freedom.
It's so beautiful. I love that.
And he's really defining the difference between reaction and response, I think.
Power to choose.
Yeah. And this is easy to find. If you just Google in Viktor Frankl, you'll probably find this quote. It'll be the first one that comes up. But just between stimulus and response, and you'll find the quote.
Good, honey.
He gave us such hope, Viktor Frankl, that we can get through anything.
Yes, that's right.
We can get through anything if we,
Even through the concentration camps. Yeah.
Think loving thoughts, if we think about who we love, if we think about, you know, who we've cared about in our lives, and we can survive anything.
Yes, we can.
But it's interesting because like that reacting to the stimulus sometimes feels really good, but it really has the impact you want it to have. And so, like, I mean, I am really trying hard to connect with that space, and I'm very blessed to have colleagues who remind me of the need to just, you know, take that pause. And because, yeah, when you connect with that space, you really do, you all of a sudden, like, you can breathe more deeply, you can think more clearly, and you can show up better for the people that you care about in your life, as opposed to just being a pinball going from stimulus to stimulus.
Thank you for that, Tim. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's really well said, and it's a really deep share, because what you're describing there is just the reason why we want to do this. I mentioned that these feelings don't feel good, right? Fear doesn't feel good. Anxiety doesn't feel good. And so we need to do, the brain says you have to do something to get rid of it. And so we lash out. And for a moment, we do feel better because the limbic system has been satisfied. It said, oh, he did something. He's defending us. We're okay now. And it will calm down for a moment. But there's damage that's been done there. And if we can put a little bit of space between that, you know, whatever that is, and even just take a breath. I'm sorry you feel that way, you know, and then we can maybe move into it a little bit differently. But remember, we're not looking for to render perfect performance here. We are all only human, and it's going to be very natural for us to succumb to that limbic system, because it's only there, it imagines, to keep us safe. So, yeah.
If you have the practice, I felt like a lot of energy in the frontal cortex here, almost a warmth or a surge of energy in the front part of my brain. I don't know if that's, I mean, I like Sharon, I felt psychological of the burden being released and just a lightness, but I felt so much activity happening here and not really knowing what that was.
It could be anything. And it may not be anything in particular. It may just be that was the experience that you had in that particular exercise. However, there have been lots of research about the effects of mindfulness practices on the brain. And one of the areas that gets stimulated is what's called the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. Right here, it's basically the third eye. And that gets stimulated during these practices. So it could be possible to feel some neural stimulation there, I suppose. this is also important for us in terms of if you're a trauma survivor, and I think we all are to some extent, that the more stimulation we can get here, the better off we might be in terms of dealing with trauma. So that may be what's happening. And again, it may not be. We don't know because we don't have an fMRI scan on you right now. So.
So, thank you, Rogers. Thank you so much for this wonderful conversation on be living in the present, on practicing how to release ourselves to the present, and teaching us about the stop, the whole stop method of finding our way to surrender to the present. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. And I want to leave you with one thought. What we say during in teaching these practices is often this: it's simple but not easy. It's simple but not easy. The difficult part is just to remember it. But you can catch yourself anytime and come back to the present moment anytime you want. Don't expect you'll live fully in the present all the time. Nobody does. But you can choose to be present whenever you want to be.
I'm
Okay.
going to try this at 4 o'clock in the morning if I wake up.
Yes, I'll be right there with you. I do the same thing. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
It was a
My
pleasure.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Oh, and if anyone wants to contact me with any questions or anything else, this is my email address right here that you can contact. And I'm happy to share any information I have with you, or if you want to be on my mailing list for future programs that I do, that would be fine too.
You have been such a gift. You've been an incredible gift to us. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Wonderful.
Take care all. Be safe. Be well. Bye-bye.
Thank you, all of us.
Thank you.
Hi,
Thank you.
Deborah.
Hi.
Garrett, for introducing us to him.
Yes,
Oh, yeah, he's great.
That was great.
Oh, thanks, Garrett.
I feel so light. I feel so light.
Yeah.
Bricks
Yay.
off. Bricks.
Carol, did you have a question? I felt bad.
I just wanted to share that I practice mindfulness every day. However, the days that I don't, where I let the world carry me forward and quote unquote forget, or just can't, take those 10 minutes to do it, chaos ensues. It's amazing. When you just pull yourself into the present moment, it's so empowering. It gives you the choice that Roger was talking about, and the choice is what empowers you. And all of a sudden, you have control. It's a sense of, I have the same sense of peace, and I was a little bit late to the meeting because I was practicing and really enjoying it, and sort of drifted off. So I really believe in this wholeheartedly. And as you said, it's not easy, but it truly is. It simplifies, it also clarifies a lot. You get to that present moment and you're relaxed enough to let all kinds of things occur.
Thank you.
Very nice. I do it everywhere.
That was
While driving, in a pool, in the shower,
There you go.
anywhere.
One thing to notice when you're not present. The next time you take a shower, notice you're actually not in the shower. And then come into the shower, actually feel the water on you and everything. It's a great thing.
Yeah, and when you do it often enough, that's why I say you do notice when you're not present. And it feels like chaos to me. Because I breathe a lot. But I'm going to try breathing now against a book. Thank you.
Well, yeah, just to learn how to do it, and then you can let it go after that.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Cheryl.
so much, Roger. Thank you.
Okay, my pleasure. I'm going to go now, y'all. Thank you. Good.
Thank you.
Good to be with you all. Have a great evening.
Much.
Thank you, Janice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
Oh, and thank you, Sharon.
Yeah.
Welcome. You're so
Thank
welcome.
you.
It's my honor to find these speakers for us.
Wonderful.
We have an amazing speaker in June. Her name is Mimi Feldman. She wrote a book called He Came In With It about her son, an amazing book about her son with schizophrenia. So she's an amazing author and has a blog, and she will be our speaker the first Wednesday in September.
September.
Wonderful.
And
Thank
then-
you, everybody. Cheryl, you look very good. Rested.
Thank you. Well,
You look really rested.
well,
Must be the mindfulness.
mindfulness, and I loved your question. I was going to ask, what is the difference between meditation and mindfulness? I'm not clear
Well,
on
mindfulness,
what the
meditation,
answer was there.
being present. Mindfulness is being present. But what were we doing? We were meditating. So that's why I was confused.
I'm still a little bit, it's just a form of, I guess.
I think, you know, meditation is a way to mindfulness. It's a way to live in the present. Like this belly breathing is.
Yeah,
Like it's the same idea as the belly breathing.
I think that's what he was saying, yes.
Any form of meditation helps us live in the present, be present.
Yeah.
Sitting in a chair, feeling our breathing,
Mhm.
just be present. So, and there's so many ways to meditate, and there's no right way to meditate. There's no one way to meditate, and you can have a mantra or you don't need a mantra, you know?
I
Mhm.
love that he called it a practice, because that made a big difference for me when I just think of it as a practice and not something that I have to do perfectly or the same way that anyone else does it. And
Yeah. Well said, Tim. Very well said.
Sharon, I just want to thank you for, I got your West LA NAMI emails. I got on your list somehow because I think I contacted you when my son was living in Culver City, and it was his
I think you
first-
did. We spoke on the phone, and somehow I got you hooked up with our.
Right, in the Bay Area. You were wonderful. You were a lifesaver. I didn't know anything about NAMI. Everything was just, I was beside myself. I didn't know what to do.
Well,
Welcome.
please call me anytime you need help. Please call me.
You were just wonderful, and I love your group.
Well, join us again. You're now on our email list, so you can.
I know, and thank you so much for including me.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. You'll
But
see.
you really helped me an awful lot. It's been over 10 years.
Well, if you go on our website, you know, you can join Cynthia's our support group meeting next Wednesday night if you want.
And it's interesting to join different areas because so many different, you get across range of different people and different experiences. So
Post her email address.
Yeah, so why don't you give Cynthia your email address right now before we sign off?
Right.
okay, you know what? I'm 79 years old and I've never had a computer class.
Oh,
So
okay.
can I just give it to
Okay.
you?
Yeah, I'm right here. Do you hear me, Beverly?
Yes, I do. Okay,
Okay.
okay, it's Beverly, like Beverly Hills, Chin, CHINN, 2154 at Comcast.net.
Okay, we'll invite you to our support group meeting next week, Beverly.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to be signing off now, so.
All right, enjoy your evening and everyone stay safe down there.
And thank you,
Janice.
Erin, and
Great.
Janice for all of your help with this. and
Oh,
Cynthia.
lovely.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Cynthia. Garrett.
Thank you, all of you.
Good seeing everyone.
Erin.
Well.
Bye, thank you.
Well,